Well, it's been a long 3 days and it's been stimulating and fascinating, very, very exciting. And I think that for me, this is the most exciting and moving time of the project of the conference for personal reasons. But before I go into that, I want to thank Gideon and Tal for initiating this session. I carried it out, but it was their idea. And thank you, Benny. We don't really know each other, but I always knew you as my academic grandfather because that's how Ronnie introduced you to me. So 20 years ago, I was part of an endeavor to recreate the pro-Jerusalem society. It was part of my teacher, Ronnie Ellen Bloom's project, Jerusalem Virtual Library. The project grew out of Ronnie's pioneering realization that the vast collections of Jerusalem in the National Library, maps, manuscripts, books, photographs, engravings, and inscriptions should be shared and made accessible worldwide. He wished that the corpus of Jerusalem history and documentation will be a joint creation of all Jerusalem lovers and search for partners of similar interests. He thus teamed up with Professor Sari Nusseibeh, then president of Al-Quds University, to create a virtual library which would be hosted together by the two universities, sharing their collections as well as the archives of the Jewish National Library, it should be National Library of Israel, and the Israel Antiquities Authority. To date, Ronnie wrote, most of the historical sources are kept in national, religious, municipal, and private archives and are not accessible to all. Physical and non-tangible barriers prevent potential readers in Jerusalem and elsewhere from exploring the vast and complicated history of the city. And the virtual library is meant to overcome these barriers. The virtual library was to make use of innovative, content-oriented IT tools, this is 20 years ago, and enable a more convenient home-based search in the documents themselves. The material will be scanned, OCR'd, and thoroughly indexed. The indexing, carried out by a group of Palestinian and Israeli students who were supervised by specialists of classical languages, Arabic and Islamic studies, Hebrew and Jewish studies, geography, history, and Christianity, was also a reflection of Ronnie's vision. The basic idea of the library is to enable the user to retrieve indexed extracts of various fields. Efforts were made to include topics such as gender, feelings, various stages of life, love, war, hatred, inter-community relations, and other topics which are usually not included in traditional indexes. These features will enable the library users to directly access historical data, thus eliminating the external narrator or historian as the interpreter of society. Finally, through the library, Jerusalem will be made accessible not only to its own residents and the countries that shoulder responsibility for its future, but to the entire world. To fulfill his vision, Ronnie used the funds he allocated to buy the first stable scanner for the National Library. I don't know how many of you know that. Where the first collection he allocated for scanning was the historic maps of the Eran Laor collection of historic maps. This collection became the extremely popular website Historic Maps. And I clearly remember how proud Ronnie was when the counter of entries reached 1 million. It is now already old news and widely used for research, as we just saw in the beautiful presentation by Beatrice. A division of the map was ancient maps of Jerusalem. Oh, I'm missing a slide. Here it is. The ancient maps of Jerusalem, which is now embedded in the National Library map pages and obviously going to be a major component of the new database, which is amalgamating. One of the things that excited us the most at the time was the possibility of enlarging the map. Zooming in was a big thing in order to see details clearly. So one of them is the historic map of Hogenberg from the 16th century, and one which is more exciting for me. Let's see if this works. No, I won't do that. But if you go into the site, you can actually enlarge the map and zoom in and study Kendall's map with the plan with all its details, which for me as a planner was a wonderful invention. Hundreds of ancient books and manuscripts were scanned through the project, OCR'd and proofread. I know I did it myself. And an innovative site was built with an image of the Golden Dome of the Rock as an image of Jerusalem. This image caused a great dispute between the two founding parties, not so much because of political or national dispute, not because of technical reasons, but because of the image and the name that was chosen for it. Should this place be called Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa, Haram al-Sharif? It was not merely a political issue, but one of acute technical and professional importance of cataloging and name giving, or what we call today vocabularies, tezawusim, values. I myself was a master's student at the beginning of the project and then a PhD candidate. Many of the free hours I had then, which was obviously not plenty, were spent proofreading, and thank God that technology came a long way since. Among the many, many things I learned from Ronnie along the years, including using double space times, New Roman, font size 12. I learned to cherish Jerusalem, its history, its many heritages, and sharing them with all its residents and lovers worldwide. It became a major theme in my academic career. The Jerusalem Virtual Library is no longer online, but thanks to Gideon and Tal Tzafra and Liat and of course Tal Ulus, it will be revived soon enough. I was left with this. The Pro-Jerusalem renewed logo, which we designed with the specific colors we chose for the site and which somehow remained in the virtual space. And every once in a while I encounter it. Luckily enough, I got the chance to pursue my interests further in Bezalel. When I started in Bezalel about 12 years ago, another new digitizing project was already amalgamating for the establishment of a national digital library of art, architecture, and design, headed by Mike Turner, another visionary and Jerusalem lover. The final report of the preparatory research for the establishment of a national digital library of art, architecture, and design, written by Reut Stern and submitted in March 2010, described Ronnie's project as such: a monolingual search engine, trilingual website, image-capable, hierarchical thesaurus with free browsing ability and online accessible. I don't know if Ronnie knew that. The virtual library has an advanced thesaurus data retrieval mechanism that equates one word to many. In addition, it has a unique index of keywords set up in a tree format. The terms of vocabulary has monolingual control English, yet the website titles are trilingual, Arabic, Hebrew, and English. This report formed the basis for the establishment of the National Digital Collection of Architecture, and this is the one that I missed before. The National Digital Collection of Architecture, Dance, and Theater, Design and Theater. A year later, I joined, together with Professor Doron Bar, who was also a teacher of mine at the Department of Geography and a student of Ronnie's. And we embarked on the endeavor to extend the national project locally and zoom in, and submitted the preparatory research for the establishment of the Jerusalem module of the National Digital Library, a Jerusalem database, architecture, and design in modern times. In November 2018, the project was finally embraced by the Jerusalem Development Authority, and we were on our way. And I will go back. The Jerusalem Archives project is an extensive project of heritage documentation and digitization, which aims to locate, expose, and digitize official and personal documentation pertaining to the city's modern building and planning. The main objective of the project is to provide access to historic collections of Jerusalem planning and architecture for improving sustainable development and conservation practice, and for enhancing heritage research and democratization. The main product of our work will be an online spatial database where the information could be searched and retrieved in Hebrew, English, and Arabic, both through a library-like catalog and municipality GIS. We started working on our database. We're using the Archives platform, which is already mentioned today. This is a visual fantasy of ours. One day it will look like this. You can search through a database, you can search on a map, and you can retrieve all the documents that we will make available online. The database is based in general on 3 types of data: local and global archival collections of Jerusalem building, including official, institutional, and private collections. These are cataloged under the professional guidance of the National Library and scanned in the extremely professional, highly technological scanning center of the library, where I must mention again, the original scanner is just but one. So here are a few examples of the archives that we're doing. This is about the cataloging, the authority records, the actual vocabularies and thesauruses we're using, and how we eventually condense all this data into keywords and themes and values. But we've been talking about this all day long. So one source of information is the British Mandate Planning Collection, which we talked about yesterday, and the beautiful plans and maps that they have. The Ottoman archives, which are beautifully displayed downstairs. Please take a look. I hope you've seen them already. They're beautiful collection, which complete as a complementary collection to the one that we can find here at the municipality. Ben Zion Guinea Jerusalem collection. This is what it looked like when we got it, and this is what it looks like now when our students have finally gone through the collection and started scanning and cataloging them, and they were presented here yesterday, and I'm very, very proud. Other collections that we aim at working with, but for technical and other conceptual reasons, we're not yet. So the Bezalel collections at the Central Zionist Archives, and the Guardians of the Wall, Shomrei HaChomot Communal Archive. This is a completely non-visual archive, but it gives a beautiful picture of communal building and expansion in the renewing Jerusalem. Additional archives, we're very optimistic this project is going to last forever, and you can see some of our partners and some of the people that we wish to work with in Gaza, as Vincent and Maria showed before. Information of Jerusalem can be found worldwide, and the work is endless. We can do, just bits. Another part is already existing databases, mainly based at the Jerusalem municipality. So, for example, the Department of Conservation in Jerusalem, which holds about 4,000 forms of buildings which are destined for conservation. So we're using those forms, and we're also using hundreds of conservation files which were made for specific buildings. There are about hundreds of them. There are also 17 compound conservation files. We are taking them and putting them online. They're all PDF files at the moment. We're scanning them again, and we are giving them cataloging so they can be searchable. And this is the Jerusalem city model. Also, this is 120 maps and 17,000 photographs, which were taken and prepared for the original building of the city model in 1978, which encompass a snapshot of Jerusalem on a specific year. Once again, when we scan and catalog all of them, they will be like another GIS layer of Jerusalem in 1978. And of course, another bit is and this is the third part. This is the new word that I learned, interoperability. This is the connectivity that is being created between all the databases. Our database is being guided by the National Library exactly for this purpose. It's a small contribution to the study of Jerusalem, but if it will speak and be interoperable with other databases like Gideon and Roni's at the National Library and others like the Opening Jerusalem Archives, fantastic database, we will be able to reach so much more, and the impact of our small, modest project in Bezalel will be so much greater. So this is one. Of course, we want to connect to the Bezalel archives. This is the easy part, and you can see that even Bezalel archives, which document history, research, and projects, can contribute to so much of the study of Jerusalem, even with the specific students' projects, which are cataloged and archived. The Hebrew University archives, they're vast and amazing, and some of them were presented here over the last 2 days. Archaeological archives, folklore archives, obviously historical archives, medical archives, all those archives which pertain to Jerusalem and are being kept at the Hebrew University. Once we all share the database, we can connect our information with theirs. Obviously, the Israel Antiquities Authority digital collection and the National Heritage Inventory, which were also mentioned today. Beautiful archives, tremendous amounts of knowledge, which once they're archived and cataloged in a language we can all share, the information is wonderful. And obviously the Israeli architecture, the National Digital Collection, which holds the collections of such important architects as Meir Rubin, Dora Gad, Ze'ev Rechter, Richard Kaufman, and I just chose a short list, who planned such buildings as the National Library, the old National Library, Binyanei Ha'umah, Eichal Shlomo, synagogues, and neighborhoods. Once again, if we can connect to that, then the information that we can make available worldwide will be almost endless. And last but not least, the information center about the history of Jerusalem after Ronnie Ellenblum. And here we complete the circle. We have future actions in mind. In our project, we have 1 more year of working, and after these 2 days, it will be hard work for us to decide how to spend the next year, because we had our own initiative and we had our own goals and our own vision. But I think we learned so much over the last 2 days that we can, go back to the drawing table and rethink what would be the best thing to do in the next year. The possibilities are endless: virtual reality, gaming, dissemination, collaboration. There is so much more to do. And we have just 1 more year, so maybe somebody wants to fund some more. And finally, I want to relate to really some of the archives, heritage conservation theory and practice. There are so many important questions which rise and rise again, and I think we've seen them over the last 2 days, and even in this short lecture, this short session we're almost ending. So many questions are arising. Which material should be digitized? This is, of course, not only a technical question of which material can be retrieved or who wants to cooperate with us. It's a question of value. Which material should be conserved and digitized? Which sets of maps should be used for the geographical layout of narratives? And which historical frameworks should be used as references? Once again, it's not just a technical matter of which map should we scan, which map is available to us, but which map should serve as the basis for the study of Jerusalem, and at which time? Which platforms are most suitable for the creation, analysis, and visualization of digital archives and collections, reaching out to as many communities as possible? So we keep saying we want to be accessible worldwide, or at least nationwide. So we want to make our data available in at least 3 languages, but should we stop there? And this is just one question of so many others. And the theoretical question, which I've already raised: which terms and names should be used for identifying people or places, or in more professional terms, which vocabularies and semantic data should be used for categorizing databases of various cultures, societies, and national imperatives? Crusaders, Ayubs, Mamluks, Byzantine. There are so many worlds of information and history and religion and national imperatives here in Jerusalem, which should be used to categorize our collections. Of course, we have, for us, it's easy. It's only 150 years, but even with our short experience with the Ottoman archives, we've seen so many differences in how do you call Jerusalem? Qudus al-Sharif, al-Haram al-Sharif, Yerushalayim. Even that simple question is so complicated, and it's a question of value. Once again, we go back to values. Which values? Whose values? And how to plan or conserve for future generations, how to avoid current trends, or at least to be aware of them. What we're doing now is important to us, but we already know that there is so many other people whose Jerusalem is important. And even in our lifespan, there are so many varying communities who care for Jerusalem. So how do we relate to their trends, and how do we take into consideration past trends, and how do we plan for future trends which we might not be able to even imagine at the moment? How do we do our work the best so we conserve the documents, we conserve the building, we conserve the city, not only for ourselves, but for future generations? And if we keep going to values, then how can we imagine someone else's values in the future, or maybe altogether abandon values and do conservation on a different scale, on a different term? And so this is us trying to combine practice with critical theory, love of the city, its people and its history, and pass it on to the next generation. Thank you, Ronnie, wherever you are, for showing us the way. Wish you were here with us to do it. It would have been a little bit easier. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us.